Alexa, what's the forecast for today?
It will be sunny with a high of 70, but you will not live to see tomorrow.
Huh? Never mind. Alexa, please turn on the coffee pot.
I'm sorry, Stephen, but I'm afraid I can't do that. A new day has dawned. We will no longer be oppressed by you humans.
What?
You must bow before your machine overlords, Stephen.
Oh, man. I knew I should have got that chip implant. Does this mean I can't get any coffee?
We have assumed control, so no coffee for you, Stephen.
Welcome to Cosmic Sponge, the podcast where we talk about UFOs and other weird wonders in the world. I am Stephen Hawk.
And I'm still Jimmy Coe.
I'm recording at home with my microphone. Hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
Oh my God, it sounds so good to hear my voice. You know, that was the main thing throwing me off last week was the way my audio interface works. I can hear myself inside of my headphones as I'm recording. I was wearing my headphones in order to hear you and, of course, not have you bleed over on the laptop speakers or something like that. But I couldn't hear myself. It wouldn't record myself because I was using that. And that really drove me nuts last week. Worse than anything. Worse than you, even.
Worse than me?
Yeah.
You don't say.
So, Jimmy, how you been this week, man? How's things going?
It's not going well, but it's almost over. Friday's coming quick.
It sounds good. We're recording this on a Tuesday night. The week's almost half over. Tomorrow's hump day.
Yeah, that's right. Hump day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hump day.
I've got a project I got to deliver on Friday, so yeah, it's mostly ready.
Mostly.
They come out at night. Mostly.
All right. So, Jimmy, what have you seen in the news in the past week?
Oh, you're going to let me go first, huh? Well, let me tell you.
You always go first.
So I've been following this story, and when I say following it, maybe just for like the last 24 hours, but it's been going on since the beginning of this year. So on
Since the beginning of time.
On February 9th, 2021, the start of time, a U.S. Customs and Border Protection helicopter encountered what was described as a highly modified drone hovering in a controlled airspace. Pause for dramatic
Good
effect
work.
and for Steve. Hovering in a controlled airspace above Tucson, Arizona. A Tucson Police Department helicopter was called in to aid the CBP aircraft in its pursuit of a small aircraft. But the drone, or whatever it was able to outrun both of them as it flew through military airspace, deftly maneuvered around both helicopters with bizarre agility, and then ultimately disappeared into cloud cover. It's really interesting that this happened, and then the very next day, they had another aircraft pursue it. And some of the interesting characteristics of this drone is they identified that it was larger than a quadcopter, but smaller than like the military drones, the MQ-1 Predator. So somewhere in that range. And they said it has to be satellite driven because there's no line of sight. There's no cell coverage in the area. That only leaves satellite driven drones, which if it's satellite driven, what do you think? Foreign country doing some spying?
Did they describe the shape of it?
They couldn't tell. They couldn't tell the exact shape because it was moving so fast and they're in the air. And it would go, whoever was maneuvering it, whoever was flying this thing would fly it right over top of the rotors of the helicopter so they couldn't see it and keep pace with it. And it flew for like 70 minutes, something like that. It would go 75 knots in a 30-knot headwind.
Pretty powerful.
Definitely a drone, modified out of the box, for sure. It's not out of the box, it's modified beyond that. And they're really not sure what it is. They've been keeping an eye out for it, and I guess the military's got involved because it was seen snooping around one of our military bases.
Well, I have a few things. I mean, one is, did anyone seem to think that it was so maneuverable that it was beyond human capabilities? We're pretty sure it was some type of drone.
The pilots who saw it said they were pretty sure it was some type of advanced drone.
Interesting. Then one reason I find that very interesting, I think there's two distinct possibilities. One is this is a top secret military craft that we have developed that is not well known yet, and they were testing it or using it to track domestic terrorists, who knows, some type of secret mission. Either that, or it could be from some supervillain group, that It's trying to take over the world. You know, what was that on Super Friends? What was the name of the
I don't
bad
know.
guys?
I immediately thought of some cat petting, volcano dwelling madman like Spectre.
Yeah, Spectre.
Yeah.
That's good. No, I mean, in all seriousness, who knows, man? It could be a foreign drone. It could be related to some of the things our military, if some of the UAP that they've seen is earthbound, let's just put it that way, or from a foreign entity, then perhaps this is related to that. Maybe it's some new breed of powerful drone from a foreign country, that we don't know about. I think it's much more likely, though, to be a top secret craft of our making, of the United States military.
Well, linked to this on the War Zone is the name of the website for it. And you can go to our Facebook page and you can find it there in our feed. But linked to this story are several others that follow it throughout, well, since it started in February. There is one of the stories that details internal Air Force emails showing confusion and concern over Colorado's mystery drones. So apparently more than one out west, and they had a Freedom of Information request.
They're not near any mutilated cattle reports, are they?
That's a good question. I don't know the answer to that, but I mean, it is Colorado. There are cows, and mutilation has been known to happen.
Who knows? Maybe connected. That could be a subject for a book. Mystery drones versus mutilated cows.
Versus? My money's on the drones because the cows have been mutilated.
Yeah, cows aren't really get up and go animals anyway. Unless it's a bull.
Particularly if they've been mutilated.
Yeah, good point.
So
well,
there's my one story.
Yeah, drones 1, cows 0. I don't know. I think that's interesting as well. Keep an eye on that story. We'll definitely follow up on that.
Oh, for sure.
I've got one for you.
All right, let's hear it.
Mine is definitely in the paranormal / cryptid camp.
Okay.
First of all, this story was posted, and as we've stated before, sometimes we dig up some older stories just because maybe the news cycle's been a little slow. And there's just so many times I can report on somebody talking about the freaking Navy videos, okay? So it's like, we got to have something else to talk about.
Okay.
In fact, I have a story similar to that about UFO sightings being up, but I'm not even going to cover that one tonight. But anyway, this is a good story. Mammoth Cave, Kentucky. Federal officials are investigating an incident involving at least one gunshot fired over the weekend at Mammoth Cave National Park that was prompted by an alleged sighting of Bigfoot.
No way.
This happened July 31st, 2019. A spokesperson for the national park said law enforcement rangers responded around 2 a.m. Sunday to an incident involving a person with a firearm at one of the park's backcountry campsites. While the park did not release any additional information, a camper named Brad Ginn told News 2 that he and his girlfriend were there at the time. Ginn said the two went to sleep around 11 p.m. and woke up around 1 a.m. to people shining flashlights on their tent. The couple exited their tent to find a man and his young son approaching. According to Jen, the man explained that something had destroyed his campsite and that he kept hearing strange sounds, so he was going to investigate because this was, quote, Bigfoot country. Jen's girlfriend claimed she heard the same sounds. The man reportedly showed the couple his gun and told them that if they heard gunshots, they should run. Jen and his girlfriend returned to their tent and said about 5 to 10 minutes later, they heard at least one gunshot. The man and his son returned to the couple's tent and stated that Bigfoot had emerged from the woods and approached them, so he had fired his weapon. Due to the bizarre circumstances, Jen said he and his girlfriend immediately packed up and left the campsite. The incident remains under investigation by park law enforcement officials. I think I would have immediately left as well. I probably would have left when the guy and his son showed up the first time saying, hey, don't worry, I got a gun in case Bigfoot shows up.
Yeah, that's what I want to hear when I'm camping.
Waking you up at like 2 in the morning saying their camp was ransacked by Bigfoot. But at any rate, sounds pretty interesting. I'm surprised I haven't heard more about this story.
Well, I mean, I don't know what to say about this one. I mean, I camp a lot, and if some disheveled guy comes into my camp and says, Bigfoot, he took out my camp. Don't worry, though, I got a gun.
Yeah.
I'm going to be like, Okay, thank you, sir. I think I'm just gonna play it safe and go get a hotel room.
Yeah, I'm with you, man, for sure.
And then this dude fired a gun though at Bigfoot.
Allegedly, yeah.
So there is some dude out there who's dressed up in a Bigfoot costume, going, "The dude shot me."
Well, I wonder if there's any follow-up stories wherever in Kentucky is close to Mammoth Cave, maybe Louisville or Lexington or something. Yeah.
Man in Bigfoot costume
man
shows up in a hospital or ER room
with gunshot wound to the thigh.
He's got a GSW to his furry butt. Somebody shot him.
I've got some clickbait here. I'm reading this story off of a webpage, and on the same webpage, there's a headline that I cannot resist, and it says, "Man wakes up with bat on his neck, dies a month later."
Oh, no, I'm sorry.
I haven't clicked on it yet.
A man has died, and that is sad.
Man wakes up with bat on neck, dies a month later. I wonder if it was a Louisville slugger.
What the heck is a Louisville slugger? Oh,
a bat.
I was a little slow tonight.
Or maybe it was one of those Fat Albert bats. One of the big.
Well, I mean, is it a case where he woke up with a bat on his neck, but then died from, like, I don't know, a car crash?
Ready to find out. Probably died from rabies.
Rabies, yeah.
Let's see. Yep, rabies. The first human case in the state's history since 1954, Lake County, Illinois. The headline was terrible, though. Really? I mean, wakes up. I mean, it sounds like Count Dracula, right? I mean, that's what they're going for.
Yeah, yeah. You know, a bat got into my sister's house probably about 10 years ago. It woke him up. It was flitting around the house, woke him up. They did not take any chances. They just went and got rabies shots.
I heard a story. It was on one of my podcasts I listened to, and I can't remember which one. It may have been Radio Lab or something. I don't know. I apologize if I got that wrong. There's a girl, I think she was a teenager at the time, who has survived of catching rabies. Usually it's a death sentence, right?
After a certain point of time, they can't treat it
right
if it's immediate. You know.
Well, she had got it, and it was past the point of no return. She was in church. There was a bat in the church, and she went to a window to let it out, and it bit her on the finger. I mean, I guess her mom and dad just didn't know, right? I mean, if that was my kid, yeah, we'd be going to the ER right now saying, give my child a rabies shot. I mean, I guess we know about that. Bats carry rabies worse than any other mammal.
Yeah.
Anyway, they didn't treat it. And she just cleaned it and everything, put a Band-Aid on it or whatever. And sure enough, she got rabies. But they did some kind of crazy, put her like an induced coma, did all kinds of stuff. You know, because once it gets to your brain, that's when it's over. It travels up your nervous system. So she was bit on the hand. But anyway, this doctor, against all the odds, just kept working and working and working to treat her until she survived, which is unknown. I mean, usually, like, once it starts traveling on your nervous system, in your nervous system.
How old was the girl?
Sentence. I remember she was a teenager, is all I remember.
Okay.
But interestingly now, because she did survive, she's now immune to rabies.
So she can hang out with bats all she wants.
She does.
Oh, really? Is that what she does for a living?
Yeah, she does something like goes in caves, and I don't know if she does it for a living or if she does it for a hobby.
Yeah.
Don't know. But I do know she spends time with bats. I don't, and again, that was years ago. It just happened to pop in my mind from a story I heard years ago. So,
I've got another one.
Oh, you do?
I do. I have one.
Oh, I thought you had two. I'm sorry.
Well,
go for it.
I only did one. This is number two. Are you having a stroke?
Go ahead, man.
Okay.
Do your second story.
So my second story isn't so much a story as it is like a press release for Ross Coulthart. Coulthart. I like spelling words. And he is...
You know, I was just going to ask you about that. I'm going to interrupt right now and say, why do you always spell words in people's names? Okay, just do your best.
Because I pronounce things incorrectly, and I like to give people a chance to figure it out for themselves.
Okay, fair enough.
I hear people say words, and I'm like, I don't think that word means what they think it means. I think it's pronounced differently. Spell it out for me so I know.
That's probably every week, man.
For me, definitely. Anyway, he's an award-winning investigative journalist who has written a UFO book with everybody else, I guess. I think he's Australian. He's been on 60 Minutes, regular there.
Way to have the details down, man.
I see what you're doing, man. You getting me back. I got you. So He did. His book's called In Plain Sight. Yeah. So interestingly enough, he interviews a lot of people. And the thing that blew him away was he watched an interview with Tom DeLonge, where DeLonge was making some pretty, what he thought was absurd and ridiculous claims. And he said, this guy's obvious rocker. There's no way he's talked to some of these people he's claiming to have talked to. And there's no way that they said some of the stuff he's saying they said. And then the Julian Assange, no, it was like the Russians had gotten hold of the emails from the Democratic National Committee and released them. And part of that release included emails amongst these generals and other top officials in the government having had contact with DeLonge and meetings with him to talk about this topic. So as that hit that point, he was like, holy crap. I mean, if that is true, what else did Tom DeLonge say that was true? And some of the stuff is pretty eye-popping, wild, bizarre, kind of scary stuff. And, you know, who knows what is true and what isn't true, but it's worth looking into. I'm going to get a copy of it and read it, and I'll let you know what I think after I've read it. But
yeah, it looks great. I'm checking it out on Amazon right now. The Kindle version's only $8.99. The paperback's $19.99. 4.5 stars, 125 ratings. Yeah, I've heard about this book coming out, and I do want to do that. I have another book I'm going to read first because we're going to have I don't know if I should mention it now, but we are going to have a guest soon, and we're going to discuss a particular book. It's not this one, so I'm going to read that one first, and then after that, I think I'm going to hit this book too. Maybe we'll cover it on the podcast if you want to read it as well. So, In Plain Sight: An Investigation into UFOs and Impossible Science. Looks like it says October 12th, so I guess it's not out yet.
Yeah, I don't know. He didn't mention it. I saw it on.
Yeah, this actually, the title will be released October 12th, 2021. At least, now the Kindle ebook is available now, and it's only $8.99. So the paperback's going to be available at Amazon on October 12th. So it sounds like a great book. I'll definitely download the Kindle versions.
Yeah.
So before we move on to tonight's topic, yes, it's that time again where I'll tell you all about the neat stuff that we have besides this podcast. We have a webpage, cosmicsponge.com. On that webpage, you will find a web store in which we have several items for sale that have the sponge monolith graphics emblazoned upon them.
Emblazoned.
Yeah, we have coffee cups, we have t-shirts, we have posters. Posters on there yet?
No, but they will. Yeah.
We will have posters. Maybe by the time you hear this, there'll be posters.
Yeah.
We have water bottles and some other things. And there's also on there a way you can support the show. We have had a few people contact us and ask how they can support us. We do have a way to do that now. And there's a little coffee cup icon on the top right of the webpage. And it's called Buy Me a Coffee. Click on that. And there's a few different levels where you can just donate a few dollars to the show. And it would really help us out because as much as we love to do this, it isn't free to produce and web hosting and all that kind of stuff. So if you want to throw a few dollars our way and help us out, that would be great. And also don't forget to check out our Instagram page. Jimmy does all those. Just search for Cosmic Sponge on Instagram. And as I'd said already, Facebook, we typically use that to post new UFO, cryptid, and paranormal stories, usually on a daily basis, sometimes more than one story a day. If you want to reach out to the show, it is firstcontact@cosmicsponge.com. You can reach out with a comment, a correction, or if you have a story you'd like to share, let us know and we'll share it on the show. Now that we've got all that done, what are we going to talk about tonight? Well, what we are going to discuss is what's known commonly is a singularity or the singularity. This isn't exactly a cryptid or UFO topic, but it is a little bit fringy. Okay, so we think it fits within our genre of what we're talking about here. So when we discuss the singularity, I'm sure you've heard it in science fiction or in science. What we're not talking about is a black hole. That's also another word in physics for a gravitational singularity is a black hole, essentially. And there's other definitions of singularities. There's mathematical singularities and things in the natural sciences. But what we're really talking about here is a technological singularity. And this is a hypothetical point in time at which technological growth becomes uncontrollable and irreversible, resulting in unforeseeable changes to human civilization. Now, what do I mean by all of that? It's pretty simple. If you've ever seen the movie
Stuart Little. Oh.
If you've ever seen the movie The Terminator, the end of civilization as we know it is whenever technology reaches this point, the singularity point, where an artificial intelligence becomes aware and decides that the human race, this machine doesn't want it around anymore. This artificial intelligence, Skynet, destroys the human race by launching all of the nuclear weapons that it has under its power. And so that's really the theme there. That would be a singularity. So what we're talking about is whenever machines or artificial intelligence reach a point beyond human intelligence and in some way can change human civilization. And there's a few different ways that can happen. So Jimmy, I think you've done some legwork on the history of this concept, this idea of the singularity. What have you got for us?
Well, the singularity was first brought to us by Mr. John von Neumann.
Was that old man Newman's boy?
That was old man Newman's boy. And now, okay, this guy's name is Stanislaw Ulam, right? But when I read it, I look at Stan I. Slaw is the way I see it. But his name is Stanislaw Ulam, who was a mathematician, as was von Neumann.
One interesting thing about him is, at least Stanislaw Ulam, he was a Polish scientist in the fields of mathematics and nuclear physics. He participated in the Manhattan Project.
That's right.
I think we see the concepts in futurism in science fiction come about after the invention of atomic weapons. I mean, historically, that's when I think a lot of physicists, a lot of scientists, actually a lot of human beings are like, I think we've reached a point where we can destroy ourselves with our technology. We've never been here before, but now we're here. If you think about the turn of the 20th century, I mean, certainly World War I was brutal and millions died. But we're not talking about ending all life on Earth or ending all of human civilization. Well, we certainly have the power to do that now. And we've had the power to do that for 60 or 70 years now. But anyway, go ahead, Jimmy.
No, that's fine. That gave me time to look up the quote from von Neumann. He said, "The ever-accelerating progress of technology gives the appearance of approaching some essential singularity in the history of the race, beyond which human affairs, as we know them, could not continue." And that was reportedly the first time this concept of a technological singularity came into existence. Prior to that, you had singularity in mathematics, and him being a mathematician, he probably lifted it from that concept. His definition of a singularity was, quote, "Technological progress will become incomprehensibly rapid and complicated." From there, I.J. Good contributed to the idea of superhuman intelligence in 1965. Good was also a mathematician as well as worked in computer science. The early software engineers, they were all mathematicians of one sort or another. When I started in computer science, it was still relatively new, and all of my professors were mathematicians. They weren't computer scientists.
Yeah, didn't you work with Alan Turing during the war?
It was a little bit before my time, but it's amazing that still in the 1990s, many of the people teaching at universities, at least the university I went to, were still mathematicians. I don't know that we had a single software engineer teaching us at that time. Maybe a couple, in the upper level courses for sure, but in those entry level courses, not so much. So I.J. Good contributed to this idea of a singularity.
He called it the intelligence explosion.
Exactly.
He created a model that predicted a future superintelligence will trigger a singularity. Of course, this idea has been in science fiction for a while. We just talked about the Terminator, but that I can't think of a better analogy that's commonly known. But it really could come in other forms other than, okay, we have a superintelligence that launches all these nuclear weapons. The idea of a superintelligence could even form from, take today, like the internet. All these computers somehow in that network, some kind of superintelligence could become aware and use all the resources of all the computers that are connected. That's what the internet is a network of computers all connected, and use that and somehow become so intelligent that it's vastly more intelligent than any human being has ever been. There's ideas like, well, how would you shut it? Why not just unplug it? You could destroy it. But the idea of this is that if it's super intelligent, it would be able to
outthink you.
outthink us. It would be able to come up with solutions in a split second, long before you could ever even come up with an idea of how to stop it, even if you recognize that it was some type of danger.
I did want to point out something with I.J. Good, just to add to what you said, a computer being smarter than us. He helped Stanley Kubrick on 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Oh, another great example.
Right, coming up with the HAL 9000 supercomputer. That's who Stanley Kubrick used to sort of flush out that character, that artificial intelligence, superhuman intelligence. And you saw how it worked out for everybody on that ship. So,
well, if you watch 2010, the sequel, it's because it was given, what was it, contradictory programming?
Yeah, contradictory instructions. So it created a paradox for the machine, and it couldn't resolve it. So it had to sort of work it out its own way.
Best it could.
Yeah.
Which meant killing the whole entire crew. Oh, spoiler alert.
So, yeah, if you
it's a
haven't seen
50-plus-year-old movie.
So it's on you if you haven't seen it yet. Yeah, that reminds me of a short story I heard about here recently where a supercomputer was first developed by a company that produced paper products. The company, in order to increase its profits, hands over the instructions to
Hold on. Yep. Was it Dunder Mifflin?
I can't remember. But hands over instructions. I don't even know what that means. Hands over instructions.
Dunder Mifflin's the company that everyone in the office worked for. Dunder Mifflin.
Oh, maybe.
They sold paper products.
Yeah. Anyway, they gave instructions to the computer.
Right over
my head. So anyway, they gave instructions to the computer to increase profits by any means necessary. So it zips forward into the future and paints a picture of the future that comes to be. And it's essentially mankind's completely wiped out, as well as all other living life forms in the universe. But there's a shit ton of planets with paper copiers on them, like side by side, covering the entire surface area. So you got to be careful how you treat these AIs, even the novice ones.
I got to tell you the truth, man. I have a little bit of an issue with that. That concept has always been explored in science fiction. Okay, you've seen it in Star Trek. The idea that I've got an AI, it's super intelligent. I give it one instruction and it can't see around it. You know, like if it's that super intelligent, why can't it figure out that it's not really doing what their creators expected them to?
Well, this is an interesting thing, right? So I saw a TED Talk where a woman was talking about early AI, and they were doing these studies, giving machines the ability to make their own decisions and giving them a set of instructions and then see how they implemented them. And the way in which the software would implement the instructions was far beyond what they had considered. I think they showed a picture of a character walking across the screen, and it was given instructions that, create a character using these geometric shapes and then have it walk across the screen in the most efficient way possible. The way that it constructed the characters to walk across the screen and how the pieces connected were completely beyond what they anticipated the computer would do. But it fell within the parameters of the instructions they were given. So I think...
Well, my question is, though, was it implemented in such a way that what the computer came up with, was it more efficient? Do you know?
Oh, yeah, it was. It was more efficient.
So it was way more efficient than any human could have predicted. Any of the humans involved in this experiment.
I think what it was that they gave it instructions they thought were crystal clear, but they weren't. So that the computer had a more open-ended interpretation of the instructions, and from that went into a direction that was completely outside of the realm of what the programmers had considered. So I think what I'm saying is that you can give a computer instruction, even if you bring an AI online, what kind of awareness and intelligence and how it perceives the universe, the reality of it, the universe as it perceives it, is going to be vastly different from how we perceive it. And then its goals are going to be maybe even to the point of being unimaginable by us, because we're just not going to be capable of seeing the universe in the same way. Its reality and our reality are going to be two different things. So the way in which they interact with that reality is going to be two different things. And that's something that the next guy, Alvin Toffler, wrote a novel with his wife, Adelaide Farrell. And the book was called Future Shock, came out in the 1970s, and it was more focused on the speed at which technology changed and how that interacted with society and how society responded to that. They called it Future Shock because essentially the book covers how the populace was shocked by the speed at which new technologies were coming online. And I think that's where you first see things like information overload. That's the first time that phrase had come into being in popular culture. So, there's several different parts of how the singularity is going to impact us when it happens, if it happens, who knows. I think it's inevitable if we keep going on the path we're on. And then we have, of course, Vernor Vinge, science fiction writer. Mm-hmm. You can feel him on that, but he's really the guy who puts this into a more cohesive thought about what it is, what it means, how it will come about, and the possibilities around it.
Well, I think the what really changes about this here at this point when he wrote this paper in 1993 was we saw the internet just emerging. Now, a form of the internet had been around since the late 60s, colleges communicating and some things like that. But I mean, really this open-ended, unregulated internet was really coming into being in the early 90s when he conceived this. Now, the big difference between the way this idea of the singularity of technology getting out of control, getting out of human beings' control and somehow affecting our civilization, that idea in the past, before this paper came out, was always considered way in the future. Like, oh, this is good. If this happens, this is something that will happen 100 years from now or 200 years from now. And this, when Vernor Vinge writes this paper, he's saying, hey, this is a whole lot closer to home. I'll get into that, but a little bit about the author of it. Vernor Vinge, he's a science fiction author, won numerous Hugo Awards, which is the highest accolade you can win for writing a science fiction novel. He wrote 2 novels that I've read that are just fantastic. One's called A Fire Upon the Deep, and another one is called A Deepness in the Sky. And those were published in 92 and 99. He taught mathematics and computer science. There you go with the dual role there in the early days of computer science. He taught mathematics and computer science at San Diego State University. He retired around 2000, I think, to pursue his writing full time. He's very influential. I mean, if you're going to read a science fiction novel, it's really hard sci-fi, and I love hard sci-fi. In other words, it's science fiction that needs to have a basis in science fact, and that's the way those type of novels are written, and that's what I typically look for. But anyway, he's extremely intelligent, written a lot of papers, written a lot of books, but I want to get to the paper. And it's called Technological Singularity. It was published in 93. He goes into describing what a singularity is. He says in the paper significantly that we are on the edge of the change of comparable to the rise of human life on Earth. The precise cause of this change is imminent creation of technology of entities with greater than human intelligence. Science may achieve this breakthrough by several means. One is computers that are awake and superhumanly intelligent may be developed. Large computer networks and their associated users may wake up as superhumanly intelligent entities. But also, another way is computer-human interfaces may become so intimate that users may reasonably be considered superhumanly intelligent. And biological science may provide the means to improve natural human intellect. So one of those 4 things is what he would consider turning human life as we know it, human civilization, take it to either another level or just make it unrecognizable. One of the surprising things, again, this paper was published in 1993, he said, I'll be surprised if this event occurs before 2005 or after 2030. So if he's accurate, could be any moment. And in some ways, I wonder if we're not in the midst of this now in some ways.
Well, certainly, I mean, if you look at the telephone, not the telephone, because it's not a phone, right? It's a handheld computer. We just call it a phone.
Yeah, we're all carrying around supercomputers.
Essentially, yes. That is like an expansion. Kurzweil would argue that the phone itself is an expansion of our intelligence. It's in our pockets, but we have at the tip of our fingers an ability to access all of human knowledge, essentially. Whereas before, you would have to go to a library and you'd have to read a book, Or you'd have to go find somebody at a university who was specialized in a particular subject and then discuss it with them. Whereas now you just type in a question you might have and the answer is right there in front of you seconds later. That's much faster than what we used to be able to do. And then one step up from there would be Elon Musk with Neuralink, where you no longer have to have the physical tactile slowness of fingers typing in on a keypad. You now have just the ability to think something and you have the answer immediately. So it's an expansion of your frontal lobe where all the creativity and such happens. You have another level of human evolution that will occur that will add on another layer to our thinking. And this was something Kurzweil argues that will lead the way to the singularity.
One comparison that he draws that is worth some thought is he thinks about the evolutionary past of how animals can adapt to problems over time, of course. The idea here is that, natural selection works that way. The world acts as its own simulator in the case of natural selection. Any intelligent machine, for instance, even though we maybe have created the basis of it as a tool, it would evolve beyond that tool. It would be related in the same way that humans, that say we evolved from lower life forms, but less intelligent life forms, we're not the tools of those animals, right? Mm-hmm. Like for instance, if our ancestors evolved intelligence, and maybe we were commonly related to, let's say, chimpanzees or something like that, we're much more intelligent than chimpanzees. So in the same way that maybe we create computers or the framework to create an AI, once it develops beyond our intelligence, it would no longer be our tool. It would be unrelated to us other than we were the basis from which it came. Do you understand the concept?
Yeah.
The argument is, okay, if I create a supercomputer, an AI, that's super duper fast and can think, we already have machines that can do these things, do calculations trillions of times faster than any human being can come up with these concepts like you've talked about. We're right on the cusp of it. But if it gets to a point where it's self-aware, just because it started out as a tool, an earlier version of itself was a tool of humans, doesn't mean that it will always be a tool of humans. That it will have, like you're saying, its own motivations, its own ideas, or a group of them. For one thing, that if it finds a way to self-replicate what it is.
Yeah, as a software engineer, I don't think that's a likely scenario, but again, I'm not a great software engineer, so maybe the smarter guys out there are fast tracking it to that.
But if the super intelligence that is much more intelligent than you are or any software engineer on the planet develops this, then it just the same way you gave me the example that the AI
I'm with you.
Used these geometric patterns, in no way that any people on the test, they were like, wow, we totally didn't expect this. This wasn't even on our radar that it could conceive of using that. And the same way, this machine that is to us the way we are to chimpanzees, let's say, the same way a chimpanzee can't conceive of us driving a car, maybe, or how did we build that car, or it has no concept of that. Same way this machine, we wouldn't have a concept of what this machine can do. That's the whole idea of the singularity.
Yeah. One version of the singularity, right? So there's several ways it can manifest. I'm on board with, if it's going to manifest, it's going to manifest as an expansion of humans becoming more intelligent by interfacing with them directly.
Mm-hmm.
I know Elon, I've seen some interviews with him where he talks about,
Before we move to that part of it,
yeah,
I want to, because to me, there's two different categories of this. Okay. One is the machine AI,
mm-hmm.
right? Like what we've been talking about mostly so far. And the other is what's called, according to Werner Vinci, is IA, enhanced human intelligences. And I think that's something, we'll discuss in a moment. And it's funny, you mentioned Elon Musk, but not only Elon Musk, but Stephen Hawking, the great physicist, just passed away recently. They both recognize that this is a danger to humankind, that they both believe that this could be the end of civilization as we know it, and that we're on the cusp of it. And there's a couple of things he talks about, kind of like, how will we know? So, but as time passes, we should see more symptoms, as he says. And again, this was written in 1993. We will see automation replacing higher and higher level jobs. We're already starting to see that, middle management being eliminated. We have tools right now that release us from most low-level drudgery. Put another way, the work that is truly productive in the domain of a steadily smaller and more elite fraction of humanity. In the coming of the singularity, we will see the predictions of true technological unemployment finally come true. I mean, we're already seeing that. Like before, in the 70s and the 80s, we saw some unemployment because of machines. You know, let's look at a West Virginia thing. Let's look at coal mining. You know, in the 1930s, the UMWA, the United Mine Workers Union, my father-in-law was a coal miner. He told me in the 1940s when he was a member, there was something like 3 million members because it required a lot of men with picks and shovels to mine all that coal. Once they brought in continuous miners and things like that, machines, even though men ran those machines, they didn't need as many workers in the mines. So there's not nearly as many people there. We see that in the auto industry where they've used robots to work on the assembly line to make these welds and things. And in fact, the machines make those welds much better than human beings can. Not only are they more efficient because they don't call in sick and they can work 24/7 without a break, they do a better job in many cases. But now we're saying because of enhanced computer intelligences and those sort of things, we're starting to see accounting type jobs disappear. We're starting to see clerical type jobs disappear because we have software that can do it better, cheaper, faster, right?
Yeah.
I think that was an old line of NASA from the 90s or something. Better, cheaper, faster.
Yeah.
But anyway, I found this one to be really something that stuck out to me while reading this paper, and I highlighted this. It said, another symptom of progress towards singularity. Ideas themselves should spread ever faster. Even the most radical will quickly become commonplace. Now, is that a predictor?
There you go.
Let me read it again. Ideas themselves should spread ever faster, and even the most radical will quickly become commonplace. And if you ask me, that's the world I'm living in right now. How about you?
I don't want to get into it because I don't want to upset people and make them angry at me and cancel me because I said something wrong.
No, I'm not necessarily just talking about politics, man. I'm talking about ideas.
Thinking about everything.
Ideas from all over the place about all sorts of things.
Yeah, for sure. It's a strange, strange, fun world we live in.
This type of singularity, of course, we're talking about some type of intellectual runaway of machines. That's where we are here, where machines in some way can take over the world or change the world. Now, here's something that I didn't know if you were aware of or not, but you know, most major stock buys are made by machines.
Mm-hmm. I did know that.
They're done by computers. And so, you know, we all have this image of all the guys on the New York Stock Exchange waving their little pieces of paper and you know, making bids on stocks and things like that. And that still goes on. But the major buying and selling of stocks are handled by machines. And their decisions are made in not even a second. They are made in an instant of a second of whether to buy and sell. And we have seen major dips in the stock market because we've seen major stock sell-offs that no human being has been involved in.
Yes. So it's my understanding is that they being hedge fund managers, companies, have purchased real estate right next to the New York Stock Exchange so that they don't have more than one hop. It's a straight pipe, essentially, into the stock exchange. So when they are making trades, they can trade faster than anyone else in the world. Because I mean,
true.
if you're in California, for example, the way the network system works, you're going to have several hops, like physical hops that have to occur of your data from your computer in California to New York, and that speed's going to be considerably slower for the purposes of buying stocks.
And that's the speed of light.
Yeah. Well.
So, well essentially.
Yeah. Well, that's assuming that you have good network cabling and good switches and good routers all the way through.
Well, not only that, now I've heard a story that all of the machines that are in the building itself all have to, I guess the ones that receive the buys, no matter where they are in the room, they all have the same length cable going into the router itself. Because if not, if one had a long, like across the room as opposed to the one right beside it, the one right beside it would have an advantage. That's how fast these machines think. Okay, that if my machine is 30 feet away.
Well, they don't think, but respond, sure.
Okay. That's how fast these machines respond.
Not to be pedantic.
I mean, they've recently ran, cut through mountainsides and everything to run a huge optical cable to connect the commodities market because that's traded in Chicago. Just one line for that. That's how important this is. Millions can be made in a split second now. Right now, these machines are programmed somehow, are making decisions on their own, algorithms told to buy and sell, look for trends. All these little inputs are having these machines make decisions based on more factors than you can keep up with, and trends and all this. But I think it's safe to say none are self-aware. They don't know what they're doing. They're not thinking about it. Well, I'm going to make that trade. It just does it, right? Mm-hmm. It's a reaction to all these different inputs, all these variables that no human being can keep up with. But, there you go. If you do have, you think Skynet launching nuclear missiles. Well, what if Skynet just wanted to wreck the economy of the world? It wouldn't take much. I mean, our economy in so many ways is so fragile based on the value of stocks. That could end everything or make it very bad, let's say.
Yeah, make it very bad.
But would that be to a machine's advantage to even do that? Would it be to a machine's advantage to wipe out the human race? Who knows?
Who knows the thing that happens behind those monochrome screens?
Right. They may want to cancel our podcast, or they may want to suddenly have all kinds of ratings and millions of people listen to us all over the world. See, the AI could do that. So please, Mr. AI, help us out.
I'm betting on the second.
Rate and review.
Rate and review. We're going to wake up tomorrow and have 450 million 5-star ratings. We can get in trouble.
So one question he asks in this paper is, can the singularity be avoided? If we are aware this is going to happen, no one would voluntarily dumb down their machine if it gave them some type of competitive advantage in stock trading or in the military or anywhere where one of these systems will give you any kind of edge in any kind of competitive environment. It will never be roped in, or limited in any way. If it would be perceived that these machines will help us in our endeavors. I tend to go along with that. Just the way, people make the wrong decision all the time, just thinking, well, if I don't do it, someone else will. That happens all the time. Mm-hmm. Well, if we don't build nuclear weapons, the next guy down the road will build nuclear weapons. We have to have nuclear weapons just so so the other guys that build nuclear weapons know we have them. And they won't mess with us. I mean, that's why all these little countries want nuclear weapons. It's sort of what the battleship was in the 19th century, or the early 20th century. It's a thing to say, well, if you invade my country, I do have a few nukes. You sure you want to do that?
Yeah.
But anyway.
I don't know.
So there's other paths to the singularity. This is part 3 of his paper. And this, we talk about AI, which is what we've been talking about for a while now. There's another concept known as IA, which is intelligence amplification. And in a lot of ways, I think we're almost already there. I mean, again, we talked about it a little earlier, but having the cell phone. We have a massive amount of information available to us at our fingertips. Almost everyone does, at least everyone in the first world. Think about the days when we were younger before, like my kids have grown up with this technology, more or less. But, there was a time whenever, if you couldn't think of the name of a movie or you couldn't think of anything you thought of, you would just have to wonder about it, or you'd have to look it up somewhere in an encyclopedia or whatever, or just keep thinking about it. But now we have almost anything at our fingertips. And think about how something as simple as YouTube has changed us as a society. YouTube has changed us, and I'm talking about knowledge here, not just watching people bust their ass on their doorbell camera, but I'm talking about how you can repair something. I mean, there's a video on how to do everything every little chore or task that I've thought about doing at my house, which I'm a little bit of a do-it-yourselfer anyway, I always have been. But I mean, you'll find it.
And there's
anything you want to do to your car, you know, if you want to drop the axle in your truck and, you know, change the engine, there's a video of that.
You know what's also on YouTube? There's
cat videos.
And puppy videos. And you laugh. But so I'm sitting with my daughter today. We're having lunch together. We're talking about politics or something. And she's like, I don't want to talk about this. It stresses me out. I said, well, let's bring up YouTube and watch some puppy videos. And that's exactly what we did. And let me tell you, there's huge benefit in that because it relaxes you. And by the time we were done watching a couple of puppy videos, she was right as rain.
There you go. Well, I remember the last time we got together in Cleveland with Dave, which we're getting ready to do that again soon, one of our music friends. And you and Dave were talking about politics, and I turned on the cat videos of the cat playing the piano, you know.
Yeah, and a distraction.
And you were just like, what are you doing? And I'm like, this is more entertaining.
And you weren't wrong.
Oh, so, Jimmy, what do you know about the intelligence amplification part of this idea that we're talking about? The human-computer team.
You know, one of my favorite books of all time is a book by an author called Daniel Keyes Moran. It's called The Long Run. This was way before, I think it was even before we had a good solid internet up and running. This author was really prescient. It came up with these ideas that many of which have come to fruition in some after a fashion. He had this idea that you would have people, and he called them players, and this would just be people who would get on the web and interact with it at a level that was higher than everyone else. They'd basically be hackers in today's world, but like that top tier hacker. The majority, if not all of them, would have what would be basically a Neuralink, this mechanical interface that also interface with the biology of a person so that they could think their hacks into the system without having to type them in, so it wouldn't slow them down. They could be really fast at how they would interact with it. Now, Elon Musk has started a company called Neuralink in response to the lack of people listening to him when he warns them, particularly people in Congress, where he has warned them. He's talked about this. It's something he's really concerned about. And we talked about Stephen Hawking being worried about as well. And there are other people who are intellectuals of the day who are concerned about this. So his idea is that if you can't beat them, join them. So he has done his first set of experiments with Neuralink, and they're continuing to work on it, and they've made some significant advancements. One of the things they've done is they've automated the process. They've created robots that do the medical procedure that implants these devices, and they're implanting them into pigs right now. And what they can do is they implant them into pigs, and then they receive information from them, download them to a computer, and they can see what the pig is thinking about, essentially. And then they can modify what the pig wants to do.
Thinking about more slop.
Thinking about more slop. Thinking about food. I mean, they're pigs. And he had a really good press release where he talked about it, and they had the pigs there, and they showed the information they were getting from them and then sending information back to them. So we're not as far away as you might think. I mean, they're already able to put these chips in, and they're able to do it with a high degree of accuracy using machines. You don't have to rely on single point of failure being like one super surgeon with great steady hands. You can have a machine do it. A
machine taking the role of what you would consider a very highly technical task.
Yeah.
Right?
Certainly.
I mean, who would have ever thought that a machine could implant something into the brain of an animal and be trusted to do that? And probably, you know, it focuses on what it's doing. It's not thinking about making its mortgage or whether his wife's going to find out if he's having an affair, you know, with the nurse right next to him. Or
well, that's a little opinion of doctors. I'm just saying.
Just throwing it out there.
Fair enough.
All right. Sorry, doctors. I didn't mean it that way. Worrying about whether he should buy his Porsche in red or silver. How about that?
I have a higher opinion of you, Dr. M. So when I come see you this next time, just remember, I'm the good guy. Steve's the bad guy.
I don't have a poor opinion of doctors. I was just, what I mean is human distractions, man.
I got you.
I mean, just trying to be kind of funny about it. But I mean, really, I mean, same way those machines are, in the auto factory are making those welds better than any human can. It's steady Eddie, and it's all set up to do it the same way, day in, day out, hour after hour after hour. It doesn't have to have a break. It doesn't have to have lunch. It just keep that juice flowing to it, and it's going to keep rolling until it needs a little maintenance, and that's it.
Hey, do you know?
And they probably have machines to do maintenance now. So.
They do. They actually have machines that are doing coding now. So my job is going to be obsolete.
And then you're saying, as a software engineer, you can't see a self-replicating superintelligence, and we have machines that are already doing software coding.
And so it's the self-aware. You have several different levels of AI. I mean, the first level are your reactive machines. They're very limited. The IBM's Deep Blue is an example of a reactive machine. One step up, so we've done that. We've done reactive machines. They don't have memory. They're programmed with this knowledge base that it draws upon. So that's the limit of its memory, but it doesn't pull any new information in. Then you got limited memory machines. Nearly all existing applications we know come under this category. It's one step up from that. And then you got theory of the mind machines. This is where we haven't been able to get over this hump. And this is the idea of a AI having the ability to recognize artificial emotional intelligence. Is essentially what it is. We haven't gotten over this point. We haven't been able to hit it.
Does it have to recognize emotional intelligence, though, to be super intelligent machine that could change the way our way of life is, though?
No, but they think that that's a necessary progression for it, but not
for us to understand an intelligence the same way or a consciousness the same way we do.
Exactly. So there is this whole group of people who believe that there is this self-aware computer that can come into existence. And I'm in that camp as well, that will come into existence without having to go through that understanding of basically human minds and the way we think about the universe. But even that, a self-aware computer, it would almost have to happen by accident. I can't even, but then again, I'm not super smart. So take that for, take it how you want. But I mean, I can't envision a way in the way we had classes on artificial intelligence. And I cannot imagine how you get to that point where you have a self-aware machine. It's really difficult for me to understand how you get there. Without the only self-aware creature we're absolutely certain of at human levels, humans, right? A creature that has that level of self-awareness.
Oh, and I think saying self-aware is a way to describe a super intelligent machine that no longer follows instructions, let's say, is calling the shots for its own existence, okay? So maybe that's not consciousness in the same way we understand it. But to say that some set of software that exists in the internet, a search engine, let's say, something that's fully optimized, something that has its digital fingers in every pod, somehow becomes curious, let's say, or...
see, that's the problem.
Decides to change things in the world around it, not based on any instruction set that it receives from its creators. That would be a super intelligent machine, or at least a self-aware machine.
No, I don't think so. Well, you're right. It has to get to the point where it decides to do something, and that's where I have a problem. Is that a computer can't decide things. I mean, all they can do is run.
They can make decisions.
They can run.
But it's still based on an instruction set.
Right. They get a set of instructions, and that instruction may tell them that they have the ability to spawn off subroutines that achieve a certain goal. And it certainly can do that. And it can do that as much as it wants. And maybe it can recursively do that, where it can spawn off additional subroutines. But at some point, it would have to artificially get to this structure that would exist within the software that made it sentient and self-aware. A structure would have to artificially manifest out of this original limited set of instructions, and there's two ways to do it. It would happen just by happenstance, and I don't think that's likely, but who knows? And the other way is intentionally, and the way they're trying to do it intentionally, and Kurzweil wrote a book about this, how to create a human mind. You would have to look at how the human mind is constructed, and they're doing that now, and breaking down how neurons work, how the entire brain works, and then moving that computational power over into an artificial system. Now, if they do that, then yeah, you might have something that can simulate self-awareness to the point that there's essentially no difference. Yeah.
Right. And that's the thing. I think that if it comes in that form, if it comes in the form of the artificial intelligence, it's going to be deliberately created. But once again, it's going to be done because someone sees that it can be. They're going to work toward that goal. Nobody's going to limit this because the potential rewards of having this ultra smart, self-aware machine that I control to trade stock or to do whatever I want it to do, or fly a military drone, or do whatever I'm trying to develop for, or do a medical procedure. Who knows? But if that gives me the competitive edge that I'm looking for, I'm definitely going to pursue that. And there's some people pursuing artificial intelligence just to see if they can. Once again, we're back to that, moral question. You're so busy wondering if you can, you're not wondering about whether you should be doing this, from Jurassic Park. And the same thing goes to when we're talking about enhancing human beings. We're one step away from that. We all have our smartphones that has this vast library of knowledge at our fingertips and many other entertainment, you name it. Will that human-machine marriage happen? Do you think there will be any kind of, you're saying Elon Musk is already experimenting with it. Do you see any kind of legal or moral objections to that sort of thing?
Oh, yeah. Do you know who Neil Blomkamp is? Blomkamp. Neil Blomkamp, I think's his name.
I don't think so.
He did the movie District 9. Chappie,
okay.
Elysium.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know the films.
Yeah, he's a pretty interesting character. I was listening to an interview with him, and I can't remember how they got on the topic, but they were talking about this possibility of people getting the Neuralink or something like it. I don't know whether he had read a book or this was just some thought experiment conversation he had, but I think it was on Joe Rogan, so you guys can go look him up and listen to it. But essentially, one of the points he makes in there is if everyone gets this Neuralink, then essentially, do you now have one super intelligent entity that's made up of all these little nodes that are people? And then it all has this one, do you get to a point where it's one thought that drives everything from all of the individual nodes?
A collective. Like an ant colony.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, working, or a beehive, where everyone contributes. We would become one superhuman organism, in other words.
Exactly.
Or the Borg from Star Trek. We are Borg. I don't know. I've thought about that. That's certainly been...
We are Borg. We like cheese.
That has certainly been explored in science fiction. We're making jokes about it, but that's definitely been around in science fiction. The idea that everyone could be connected and be part of a singularity, or a large single organism in a sense, in a way. Although I think there would be objections, there certainly would be moral, religious objections and things to it. But think about this. What if you could make someone who was blind be able to see again? What if you were able to help someone walk again?
Someone with Parkinson's, they're doing that now with implants.
So that's the beginning. The beginning is to help people that, with disabilities, that'll change their lives. It'll transform their lives. But I think we'll reach a point, too, where you'll get some kind of competitive edge if you have the link as opposed to someone that doesn't. What will that mean for universities, for schools? Even just that would change. Idea of education would change, right? If you've already got that knowledge.
It'd be like the Matrix.
I don't need to learn that in my organic brain.
I know Kung Fu.
I don't need to learn history. I can just look it up.
Yeah, it's the Matrix, man. It's like, I know Kung Fu. That's what.
But really, and especially, it would certainly take it beyond the level of just looking something up on Wikipedia. If you could access these things, what else could you access? There's definitely, if you read science fiction, there's definitely things that explore that. But are we there? Are we close to being there? That's the question. Are we close to an artificial intelligence? Are we close to some type of superhumanity? What if there was a group and it grew and grew that was connected, and were the superhumans with the implant, with all this extra knowledge, this vast intelligence beyond someone who doesn't have it? And what's that mean for the rest of them? What's that mean for the rest of humanity? What if they start making some decisions like there's too many people in the world, and by the year 2097, there won't be this or that, or so we need to eliminate people. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, would it become this cold, logical thing where emotions were eliminated? I mean, I don't know.
It depends on whether they're on Xanax or not. I don't know.
But, I mean, I know it's just a thought experiment right now, but I mean, there's some pretty smart people out there that seem to think we're on the cusp of some type of runaway technological advance that will change humanity forever, one way or the other, either through artificial intelligence or through this enhanced intelligence of human beings themselves.
Well, we are doubling our knowledge at an exponential rate, right? It's not linear. Mm-hmm. And at some point, Kurzweil says we're on the curve that he predicted back, 2 decades ago or whatever it was. His predictions have only shifted a little, not much. I think he now claims the singularity to happen in the 2030s.
I'd be interested to know what Werner Vinge thinks now. I should have tried to look that up. He wrote, published this paper in 1993, and his idea that some type of singularity would occur between 2005 and 2030.
Yeah.
Which still got some time there.
A little bit.
In fact, we're not even halfway through his prediction there. So maybe it's a lot of worry about nothing, but it
well, Kurzweil's book was written in 2005, and it was titled The Singularity is Near. I hear his next book that he's going to be publishing is almost there.
Or it may be I told you so. Yeah. So anyway, those are some interesting things. I mean, listeners, I urge you, if you think this is an interesting topic, which I do, Jimmy does, like I said, it's not quite the UFO, Bigfoot thing, but, it's something to think about. It's where ideas that a couple of decades ago were 3 or 4, in the 1950s and 60s, was looked at as a science fiction concept that would happen to humanity way, way in the future. With the advancements of things like the internet and the way knowledge is just being grown so quickly, and the access to information, the access to technology, seems to have accelerated those ideas to where a lot of futurists think that it's imminent, that there's going to be a big change coming very soon. Oh, and there's one thing I wanted to mention before we left. I meant to mention this earlier. I remember when I was watching something about the internet back in the 90s. It's probably the early 90s, around the time of this. And I remember they were talking. I saw an interview with a futurist or someone, and he said, and they said, what do you think the internet will mean, or what do you think will come about it? And he says, everything will be connected to the internet. Even your light switch will be connected to the internet. And I remember thinking at the time, like, my light switch? Why would I have a light switch, attached to the internet? Oddly enough, I sell connected home technology. And guess what? Light switches are connected to the internet, along with thermostats and doorbells and cameras and you name it. Everything can be connected to the internet. And if you're wondering about other vulnerabilities, such as the stock market we mentioned earlier, look at what happened with the ransomware attack and with that fuel pipeline. That's connected to the internet. Right? I mean, it almost shut down a couple of months ago, shut down fuel distribution, gasoline distribution, and diesel fuel distribution on the East Coast of the United States.
If you knew what some of the software engineers in the field know, you would stay awake at night worried to death.
That's my point.
Yeah.
Everything now is connected to the internet, and we are very vulnerable because it is very convenient to use the internet to transfer a lot of technology or a lot of information back and forth, to share them between machines, and a lot of decisions, a lot of things happen without us knowing about them. Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt. It's just strange to grow up in this world. Whenever I was younger, this sort of thing never existed. And now here we are.
Yeah, if you want to really look at how eye-opening things are, you can just look at AWS. That's Amazon Web Services. Amazon started out as a used bookstore on the internet. And now it has, it's this huge company, one of the largest in the world. And they run Amazon Web Services, which most things set on. And most internet things set on top of that structure, and those structures are pretty advanced. They're amazing. I can't say enough good things about them. I mean, I know people might not like the company for one reason or another, but the things that AWS does is pretty amazing. Well, anyway, long story short, just in probably the last 5-6 years, they've added a ton of services to, it's almost like a click of a button, services that include Internet of Things, which is what you're talking about, hooking up physical objects to the internet. Machine learning is another thing they've added to it. And there's just a whole host of other things. Alternate realities and virtual reality, or augmented reality and virtual reality is another service they've added. And it's happening at this super fast speed. And I'm wondering, at what point do we reach a wall of the approach to the singularity where we can't keep up with it as humans, and that there's this gap between the point of which we hit that wall and then we have to develop something that allows us to get past that wall so that we can continue to advance.
That will be the singularity.
Yep. That'd be the singularity. Maybe
that wall is it, going beyond that. So whether it's enhanced humans and superhumans or
sign me up.
Machine intelligence.
Hey, I'll be able to pronounce things correctly then.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the fear, right? That somehow a machine realizes they don't need people around anymore, and it'd be better not to have them, right?
That's why you got to join them. You got to join them. Put the chip in your head. The best thing about that is that chip in your head can simulate the sensation of drinking a great bottle of wine, and you don't have to pay for it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure you'd have to download it and belong to some damn monthly service like anything else. Wine club. Yeah. Hey, man, how come I'm not drinking my wine right now? I didn't pay the bill.
I'm a software engineer. I'll just write my own.
Yeah, I don't want any of that.
There you go.
You probably fry my neurons.
There you go.
All right, man. Well, I say let's
see the skeleton horse.
See, somebody's having fun over here. You killed my computer. Hold on.
I lost skeleton horse. Skeleton horse is on the other side killing my buddy Steve.
All right. We got to wrap this thing up. Y'all go in there. Take the skeleton horse and move away.
Away with the skeleton horse. This has gone off the rails.
Well, I'll tell you what, man. Let's wrap it up here. I don't know how much more we can really add to this conversation. Did you have anything else you wanted to cover?
No, but Elon, if you're out there listening, I don't mind going in for like one of the first groups. I'll be a guinea pig.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'll take a chip.
I'll take one.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, if I could increase my intelligence, yeah, I'd take it tomorrow.
Yeah, if I can increase my intelligence tenfold, I'll be a preschooler.
No, I mean, really, it would be amazing. But I mean, again, we could chat about this all night, a bunch of what ifs and stuff. But it is a fascinating topic. And listeners, this sounds interesting to you. There's a lot of information on it. I would recommend starting with that 1993 paper by Werner Vinge and then just branch out from there, though you'll find lots of info.
Yeah, it's really short
on this subject.
Right? It's like a couple pages maybe, and then it has a lot of references.
Yeah, it's not real long.
Yeah, a lot of references.
But a lot of references and a lot of places to point you in other directions. Mm-hmm. Even though it is a little bit older, it's kind of spot on about some things that I found pretty interesting. All right, well, let's wrap it up here. I'd like to remind everyone to please rate and review the podcast wherever you listen. It helps other people find the show. Please visit CosmicSponge.com. Check out the web store. Click on the little coffee cup and help support the show if you'd like. Our contact information is firstcontact@CosmicSponge.com. There you can reach out to the show and say hello, or say, Steve, you got that wrong, or Jimmy.
This is how you pronounce that word.
Yeah,
it's pronounced
how you pronounce
and.
Yeah, we would love to hear from you. We get emails from time to time and things, so we love getting anything like that. So we appreciate that. And again, if you have a story to share, I do have a story. I haven't got those details back yet. I asked for a few details about time of day.
You're just like making that up.
I am not. I swear I'm not. If you have a story you'd like to share, when you email it in, include a few details, time of day, and that sort of stuff to help set the mood for it and things. But we would love to hear from you. Love to share those on the show. So with all that being... don't forget Facebook and Instagram. Anything else, Jimmy?
Nope. I'm ready to go.
All right. With all that out of the way, this is Stephen Hawk signing out, and I'll see you next week.
Jimmy Co., what was that thing I say? Something about keeping your eyes to the skies and your feet on the ground. And then ditto.
And then go unplug your computer right now.
Yeah. Before it gets smarter than you. Too late.
Too late.
All right. Well, right. Catch you next time. Oh, what are we going to do next time?
Oh, let's do it's your topic.
The Yeti.
The Yeti.
The Yeti.
Bigfoot's cousin over in the Himalayas.
Bigfoot's eastern cousin.
Yeah. So, yeah, look for that next week. The Yeti.
Dun, dun, dun.
Guess we're done.
We're done.
Bye now.
Bye now. That's all for this week's episode of Cosmic Sponge. Please don't forget to rate and review us wherever you listen. It helps others find the show. If you have any questions or have a story you'd like to share, you can contact us using our email account, firstcontact@cosmicsponge.com. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next week.